Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
Hello and a very warm welcome to weigh-in. Well, I guess it was a little bit of a privilege to be on course on Saturday to witness yet another unbelievable Karaka Million Night, and what a treat we were in for, weren't we? We had racing of the highest quality and we unveiled some more very talented gallopers. Joining me on the show this evening, we've replaced Michael Guerin with the lovely Luke Radich. And Luke, it's great to have you with me this evening.
Thank you, Emily. It's lovely to be here. It was, as you say, a fabulous race day, or race evening, I suppose, at Ellerslie on Saturday. It's very quickly become what I think is pretty much clearly the biggest and best race day in New Zealand. And for you, a bit odd on Karaka Million Night to be the main breadwinner in the family, I guess. How did Opie cope with parenting a 2-year-old rather than riding them to victory?
Yeah, he was pretty good, actually, of course. Yeah, like you say, I'm not riding a 2-year-old to victory, and pretty unusual for me to be the only one on track. But we're through the Karaka Million Day, and I'm sure he's pretty excited to be back riding. Next weekend, he's resuming at Trentham. Cool. We'll kick things off with On the Bubbles. We'll get straight into those race replays, and we start things with the 2-year-old Karaka Million.
Ahead for home is Bricks, followed further out then by Sophisticado as they get down to the 300. Then Follow Your Dreams, Brazen Blue at the 250. It's the Tangerine Army in the first 5 places here. The pacemaker now is On the Bubbles. On the Bubbles in front from Sophisticado, Sneaky Shark and Arganello. It's On the Bubbles and Jonathan Parks. They'll be On the Bubbles all night long after that. On the Bubbles won the Karaka Million. Second over will be Sneaky Shark. Arganello was third.
You're in a bit of shock, aren't you? $1 million race.
Yeah, just happy to get the job done, and you know, it's like you say, it's $1 million race, so probably are in a little bit of shock, and you know, but I thoroughly did enjoy it though.
How did it come about, you wearing those colours on this horse in $1 million race at Ellerslie?
Well, originally it started. Jamie brought the horse down to Palmerston for his first run, and again he was drawn the outside that day, and I didn't really know the horse that well, but I give him a good dig out of the gates and used them up quite a bit early. So he only just fell in that day, but it was still quite an impressive one considering how much I had to use him to get to the front. And like I said, I didn't really know him, so I gave him probably a bit too much of a dig, and he wanted to sort of get going a bit harder than I expected. So, and then obviously after that, he come up to Ellerslie here a couple of weeks ago, and luckily enough, I got the opportunity to come up and ride him and test him out again. And once again, he was drawn out wide and 3 wide the trip, and won very impressively.
It's not easy riding in the CD and coming to Ellerslie and getting on horses who can win. You've done it in the Railway, you've done it in an Auckland Cup. But a Karaka Million's a different kettle of fish, not just the money, Jonathan. It's incredibly hard to get on these type of horses.
It is, yeah, and like I say, I'm very thankful for the opportunity that Jamie and David and Karen have given me to stick with this horse when the money is up, like you say, $1 million. And you know, I was very excited about riding him tonight. Had another hairy jaw, so it was always a little bit of touch and go on him, and it all panned out nicely. But he's a good horse, and the thing with him is you don't have to ask him too much to roll forward when you want to. And so when he was stuck out wide, momentarily there, when I have asked him to go forward, he's got there quite easily and travelled up underneath me really well.
Tell us about the discussion around tactics with Jamie, or was there one?
Yeah, there was. Jamie's pretty good with his instructions. He just said, give him a dig for the first 50 metres type thing, and just see where you're at, see how they're running the race, and at the end of the day, he sort of said, you know, left it up to me, but he said if they were going a little bit slow, don't be shy to roll forward, and it sort of happened like that as well. So, you know, good instructions, and a lot of it sort of goes on instinct when you're out there as well.
How do you feel? Is it satisfaction or relief?
Both. Satisfaction, definitely satisfaction, and relief, you know, like drawing 14 did make me a little bit nervous, so I'm not going to lie there.
And a big well done to Jonathan Parkes, because I tell you what, that was the ride of the night, Luke. He just masterful performance. He was confident in his mount. He put the horse in the right position, and there was a moment there when he could have made two decisions. He made the right one, and the best horse won on the night, so well done to him.
You're right, and as they call out from the stands, there's only one Opie Boston, but Opie himself couldn't have ridden that horse any better. It was a 10 out of 10 ride. The key point was early in the race, wasn't it, where he was caught out wide and he made a decisive move to go forward, managed to lob into the 1-1 effectively. And it really reminded me just so much of last year's race when Cool as a Beal was trucking in the 1-1, this horse doing likewise, and basically he was odds on mid-race, wasn't he, once he'd found that position. Quality horse who you quite properly, I went back and watched the coverage when I got home from Ellerslie, Emily, and you nailed it. Said he was a standout in the parade ring, and he was. I
was lucky enough actually to go out to Te Akau during the week and have a look at them all, and it was just so clear. I mean, everyone at home no doubt would have seen as well. He was just he is a big strapping boy.
You don't realise it until you're there on track though, do you?
No.
It's one thing you can't convey properly on TV, because I thought the same thing watching him, that he was a standout on type. And Jamie had said all week, hadn't he, that they still thought he was the leading chance, even though for most of the week Millefiori was the favourite, and of course he was drawn wide. But a great win, and I mean, what can you say about the first four home being all Te Akau?
Yeah.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And we throw that word around, but I tried to think about some sort of context to try and think about how hard that is to do, because some people, if you were wanting to knock it, might say, oh, well, yes, okay, they're the biggest buyers, so of course they should. Well, okay, David Ellis bought about 30 horses, I think, out of about 1,000, so about 3%. Now, if you're buying 3% of the horses to get the first four home, just statistically, it's about a 1 chance in 1.5 million. So it's not just a statistical anomaly. And you say, well, they're the top of the market, they're the best horses. Well, here's the other thing. I'll make 2 points on that. I say, first of all, these horses were not the top of the market horses, were they? I think 3 out of the 4 of them were sold for less than the sales median. And the other point is, I tell you, this took a lot of research.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I'm so impressed. You've blown me away.
But I think I could be wrong about this, but I thought I went back through all the runnings of this race, and I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying if you'd simply gone to the Karaka sales and bought the top 30 lots every year, you would have never come away with more than one horse in the top 3 in the Karaka Million 2-year-old race. So it's not the numbers, it's not a statistical anomaly, it's not just that they have a bigger budget. It's really hard to not just turn this into a Te Akau love fest tonight, but frankly, how can we not? Because it's a freakish achievement, it really is.
Yeah, it sure is. And obviously in previous years, this race has been a lead on to some of the bigger features upcoming with what they've done in the past, probably Melody Bell. On the bubbles, does he, for you, present himself as a Sistema Stakes kind of a horse?
I think he does. There'll be some additional opposition in that race, won't there? But again, all the stuff I've said is probably praise for David Ellis for choosing the horse, but if I switch it also to praise for Jamie Richards for the training, there's a really interesting division in the history of this race. The first 9 runnings and then the last 5. The last 5 all having been won by Te Akau horses. In the first 9 runnings, not a single horse went on to win a Group 1 beyond their 2-year-old days. A couple of them won the Sistema, but nothing won a Group 1 as a 3-year-old or later. Since then, you've got probably Melody Bell, Avantage, who have won potloads of them, and Cool as a Beal won a Group 1, albeit as a 2-year-old. So that's the measure of the work Jamie Richards is doing, because it's one thing to win these races, and that's hard enough, but it's even harder to do it without overcooking them.
Yeah, it sure is. No, all accolades to Jamie, to David, to the Te Akau team, all the staff at home who make it all possible, and of course Jonathan Parkes as well, who guided his horse to a wonderful victory. Let's press on and move on to the other big feature on the programme, which was of course the 3-year-old classic over the mile, and what a battle it was up the home straight.
On display, our Tannehill's been taken wide by that riderless horse. Emeralina and Agon there feel away back in the field, but both looking to make their runs now. 300 metres to go, and the pacemaker Dragon Queen. Emeralina's coming after it. Agon is switching ground as well, further out on display, down to the 200 metres. Emeralina, Agon, is this the battle we all anticipated? Agon, Emeralina, and coming after them, Montremar. Agon just in front, the gelding will get there. Agon, he has beaten Emeralina in the battle of the sexes.
Well, mate, you've won bigger races, but I'm sure not many more satisfying.
Yeah, you're right. That really was satisfying for a whole lot of reasons. He was up against it, a whole lot of unknowns going into the race, and we knew he's a very good horse, but he had to take another step up today and prove that. He's coming off a decent break between races, up against a very good filly, so a wrap to get the job done.
When they've had 10 weeks between runs, you need to train them proper. They're not going to get there. You have to do something right to win these races.
Yeah, that's right. But he is a very easy horse to prepare for a race in that situation. He's not overly big, so that makes it easier. And obviously he's very brilliant. So good horses make trainers look good, and he gets himself out of trouble because he is so brilliant.
You paid decent money for him for a Sacred Fools back 2 years ago. What did you like about him?
Yeah, I didn't like the price I had to pay. I thought he'd be cheaper, to be honest. But a couple of good judges, like Roger James was underbidder, and he's a very good judge of a horse, trained good horses, and I was determined to get him. Just obviously had to pay a little bit more than we would have liked, but he was just so athletic. And even when you look at him now, he's still got plenty of leg for a small horse. He's got a real good way about him, and that hasn't changed right the way through. And yeah, Raptor's obviously ended up as good as he has.
You've got two clear options. One's Australia, one's the Derby here. Do you have any idea which way you want to go?
I've got an idea, but I haven't spoken to the owners yet. So
I think they'll do what you tell them to.
Yeah. We'll enjoy the night. We won't even worry about it, and we'll enjoy the next few days. And the good thing is, whatever path we take now, it's all in front of them. We've got heaps of good options, whether it's Melbourne, Sydney, or stay closer to home. Yeah, they're all good options with a good horse, and I'm just wrapped to be in this position.
When you've got a horse who needs everything to go right, a senior jockey helps. Leith Innes is one of the most experienced and one of the smartest. I think he was a big part of that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Leith is a big race rider, and I had absolute confidence in him, knowing that Leith had confidence in the horse. I didn't need to tell him much at this point. He's ridden him enough to know that he's good enough, and he just had to stare and hope for a bit of luck, and yeah, it all worked out.
The stable's going through a rebuilding phase. There's been some horses obviously you've lost, and some of them just got older and got retired. Is there room now to maybe attack at the sales and try and get 6 or a dozen horses, or for owners who do get horses to go, okay, yeah, I would like to be part of that rebuilding?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to try to buy horses at this sale in particular. So, obviously we are fussy. We don't buy horses for the sake of it, and we're going to be selective. But if we do happen to pick up 4 or 5, that's what we'll be trying to do, and hopefully people can get on board and support that.
How good, how good.
Incredible. I just could not believe that he finished like that down there. Did not think that was in him, let alone a horse. Incredible.
Now tell us the truth. Andrew Forsman this week tried to downplay it. He told me he was tempering expectations. How did you feel about that?
I thought it was justified, to be fair. Looking at him, really, how close the finish was, and so I think it was justified, to be fair. And he hasn't raced since November, so just what a thrill for everyone.
You've stood on the big stage after an ATC derby at Randwick. How would you like to stand on the big stage in Melbourne?
Who knows? We're going to enjoy tonight and have a great night tonight, and this is amazing. Ellerslie is full. What an evening. Just couldn't ask for anything more.
We talk about the training performance of Jamie Richards. Andrew Forsman and Murray Baker certainly fall into that category as well with what they did with Agon. So many what-ifs, but Andrew really trusted his gut with this horse as to what he thought was fitting, and it just proved to be exactly spot on. And for me, it was the clash of the night. It was what I was most excited about. I wanted to see a genuine race, and those two horses pull away and fight it out, and we got that. It was such a treat.
We did. It was a great race. And it's a great race, not just in itself, and an interesting race too. I thought the riderless horse really helped Agon here. He might have won anyway, but the way the riderless horse sort of served it up to them in front, it just made the field sort of get spread eagled, both from front to back and also across the track. so the gaps came and he was too good, only just. And Marolina, if she'd been to his inside, the result might have been different, though there's very little between them. But not just a good race in itself, but a good race for a springboard for where they go next. And as we heard in that interview, Andrew, at that stage, a little bit uncertain, but I think you can update us, Emily.
Yeah, I messaged Andrew today and he said, quote, he's going to let the owners sober up. I think they're enjoying their Karaka Million celebrations. Good on them. Well done for that win. I just picking up a few things on Twitter, I'd say they're going to lean towards Sydney sticking with his own age group in that 3-year-old, whilst he is still 3. But yeah, they're going to just give it a few days, let the dust settle, no panic, and enjoy the win for now. Amarilinia, I spoke to Jamie as well. She goes to the Fillies Classic at Tarapa, so she's off there. So
now
yeah.
That's interesting. I found that interesting because I guess if she's going there, then it means that the Oaks is on the program for her, and we know class horses can win the Oaks even if they're not genuine mile-and-a-half horses. So that's, I think, important for those that are betting futures, because if she's in the Oaks, and it looks like if she's going Fillies Classic, she's on that path, then gee, I think she'll be odds on the day, wouldn't she?
Gosh, she's very talented. And even when you consider what Aegon's done, he's already won a Group 1. He was, the best of our spring. And she looks to be one of the best 3-year-old fillies. That's the New Zealand Oaks market right there. And she's gone 12s into 5s off the back of that victory, or second placing, of course, in the Karaka 3-year-old Million. Outside of her, Cheaper Than Divorce, Needle and Thread in there as well. Needle and Thread, of course, so impressive at Ellerslie at the start of the month. So also a New Zealand Derby market as well, just based around some of those horses perhaps in behind those two.
Yeah, well, Aegon's probably not going to be there, is he, really? I mean, he's assuming he comes up well, then he'll be off to Australia. And if he doesn't come up well, then you wouldn't want to be on him in the Derby either. So you couldn't have Aegon at $8 for that race, I don't think. There was a horse that was running on quite well and behind in that race we looked at, Lord Ardmore, one of the Go Racing horses. He found the line strongly. He does have enough class to win a Derby because he was 4th in the 2000 Guineas, and I think he'll stay better than most. I'm not saying $21 is value. And Montre Moi, you pointed out, was good as well.
Yep.
Looking forward to races over a longer distance, but look, class prevailed in that race, didn't it?
It did, because fresh up at a mile, having not been seen since November, first start right-handed.
Yep.
There was so many question marks, I felt. And the more I thought about it, the more doubt I had. But he's a really professional little horse, and as you said, you were there on Saturday. When you saw them in the parade, she is big and burly, and she kind of steals your eye. And he just very unassuming. He does his job. He's very businesslike, but
he is.
He wants to be a racehorse.
See, I'm a sucker for a black horse, though. It doesn't, even if they're not the biggest horse or the most strapping type, even they've got that rich black sheen, it's hard not to have them catch their eye. And he might not be overly big, but he's very, very good, and he is super athletic. He glides.
He does, yeah. And I know in the post-race interview, Leith sort of referring to him very similar to Sacred Falls in stature, ability and nature. And great to see Sacred Falls' legacy living on through Aegon's success. Well, the other belle of the ball on the Karaka Million Night was Levante. Let's have a look at her unbelievable win in the Westbury Stud Classic.
For home, Star of Bombay to the outside, Levante to the extreme outside. 300 metres to go. Our Alley Cat's gone straight past Show of Roses. And behind them next now we've got running on. Here's Levante down the outside. It's Our Alley Cat, but hang on. Here comes Levante with 100 metres to go from last on the corner. She's bounded to the lead. Oh, she's back in winning form today. Levante, brilliant. Second at the line was Our Alley Cat, and boy, that was a nice run from her.
Ooh, that looked like a bit of fun.
Yeah, it wasn't quite how I'd panned out. Like 600 out, ideally I would have been travelling and just working around the corner at my own speed. I probably still would have been last, but not giving them the head start she did. But she sort of does her own thing. She finds her own rhythm. Last start over here, the 1200, she travelled quite keen. I mean, she still finished it well, but you can see what she does when she lets full steam off. And I think as soon as I straightened up and got her balanced, those first couple of surges, I knew I was away.
Were you a little bit concerned at the 600 when you were having to get into her a bit?
Extremely concerned. But I have so much faith in her that I knew I just had to make sure I just kept balanced enough around the corner, because as you saw, she sort of gets long and low, and if she gets too unbalanced, and it's not good for her. You know, she really likes you to help her a bit. So she does make my job easy, but she sort of made it quite hard today. But she's just incredible.
As best you can describe for the people watching weigh-in tonight, what's the feeling like when she's balanced up and the neck goes down and she starts to fly? How does it feel?
You just can't describe it, and I think that's us as riders, we're all after that, you know, and every good horse gives you a different feel. But the way she does it, she's so unorthodox, you know. She just likes to just chase, and it's always hard because you never feel like you've got the bit between your teeth and you're there. She just works there, but then once you're going, it's almost like she fishtails a bit when you put your foot flat down. So she's so exciting, and I'm just so thankful to be able to ride her.
Absolutely unbelievable performance by her. She has to be seen to be believed. And talking to Sam Collett straight after the race, she was almost speechless. She just riding a horse of that calibre, and the way she can let down and close it off is quite sensational. And really, she does things that horses shouldn't.
That's right. Look, she might turn out to be the best horse in the country, but that's arguable. What's not arguable is that she's the most exciting horse in the country. That racing style is something else. The sectionals in this race and some of the others on the day were very interesting. Obviously, she's blasted home about a second faster the last 600 than anything else in that race, but you didn't need a clock to see that. Interesting thing though, if you think back to the railway, she of course finished third, and just visually to the eye, some people might have been disappointed by that. She actually ran home her last 600 in the railway about 0.8 of a second, so about 4.5 lengths faster than she did in this race. She's an absolute freak, and her run in the railway was freakish as well. It's the difference though, isn't it? No disrespect to our Alley Cat, but it's a different story when you're chasing down our Alley Cat as opposed to chasing down Avantage. And this is, I think, one of the really interesting things with Levante going forward. Is she going to be able to follow the same sort of trajectory that Winks did, where she developed enough tactical speed later in her career to always be just enough in touch? Or is she just going to be a dropout and run on horse? Because if she's a dropout and run on horse, she's going to get beaten by sometimes lesser horses when the pace of the race doesn't go her way. So I don't know, interesting, but she just visually to the eye, there's no more exciting horse in the country, that's for sure.
No, there isn't. I wonder as well if Ken has considered perhaps blinkers on her as well, that maybe that would just help her to sit a couple of spots further forward. But she's so genuine, I wonder if they don't quite want to go there yet. And she is still a relatively young mare, so just let her find her feet and work it all out. But he said that they're going to meet the good horses someday, and she's going to step it up, and BCD Sprint is her next target over the 1400.
Well, look, though, and look, credit to Ken and the team there for being patient with her. I have to say, and maybe look, this is just the instant gratification culture that I'm a part of, but I'd be thinking All-Star Mile if she were mine. I mean, that's a $5 million race. The sprint at Te Rapa, a good race, obviously, Group 1. It's worth 200,000, 25 times the money in the All-Star Mile. And look, if she were in that, I think she'd immediately be on the second line of betting, maybe just behind Arcadia Queen and perhaps Russian Camelot.
They'd get right in behind her too with her style and everything about her. They would get in behind her too,
yeah. And she's got that, because of her racing style, I think when she eventually does get to Australia, she's going to thrive. Because a race like the All-Star Mile, you can be sure there'll be a decent speed in it. Or a race like the Doncaster or the Epsom, couldn't you just imagine her finishing over the top of them in a race like that?
There's plenty of time for that with a good mare, not like a colt who's off to stud. I certainly hope that that's coming very soon. We wanted to show you Ken Kelso watching the race, because I think he sums up how we were all feeling during this. He just, he, just like all of us, I think, closed his eyes and was very worried on the turn, and then she was just way too good when she ended up closing off over the top of them. And he talks so fondly of her and what she can do. She's so easy to train. She's such a lovely nature, and she's the ultimate racehorse. And he's had some good horses, and he labels her as the best he's had, which, you know, that speaks volumes. And also, just from a personal perspective, wanted to say best wishes to Bev Kelso as well, who I know is struggling with ill health, and I really hope that Levante was the tonic that the Kelsos needed, and hopefully she can continue on that rise.
Absolutely. Echo those sentiments for sure. I got a question for you, Emily. Who would you predict is going to earn more stake money in the remainder of their career, just starting at zero today, Probabile or Levante?
Oh, goodness me. Oh, that's a good question.
It's not easy.
Not easy,
it's
no.
Not easy.
Probabile maybe because they are attacking those Australian races.
But on the other hand, Probile, with her pedigree, they're both 4-year-old mares, Probile might be retired to stud a season or two before Levante. So
yep.
I don't know. It's an interesting one.
We'll have a bet. I'll talk to you in a couple of years or a year. Hopefully a couple of years they both stay sound. Well, that was big congratulations to the Kelso team and, of course, Levante. Sam Collard as well for her ride aboard the mare. Let's move you along to the Almanzor Trophy. Need I say more successful in that one?
Maria Farina to the outside, and last of all as they head for home is Miracles Happen. 300 metres to go. Babylon Berlin put 2 or 3 lengths on them. Here's Need I Say More winding up. Maria Farina right down the outside and explosively. Babylon Berlin leads by 2. Need I Say More's mustering though. Babylon Berlin and Need I Say More. Need I Say More range to the lead. Explosively's arriving late. Tiakau get the first. Need I Say More? No, you don't need to. It got there from Explosively. Third was over on the inside Babylon Berlin, and then came Ever So Easy.
It was a big win, Troy, because at the halfway mark it didn't look that good for Need I Say More.
Yeah, he jumped out okay, sort of got hampered a little bit at the start, so I've had to go back a further spot than I wanted to. Got a bit of cover and he sort of quickened off the corner good, and sort of about 200 to go, he really knuckled down and finished off strong.
Were you surprised how well he found the line considering the big weight?
Yeah, I was. My only query was the weight. I knew he was the best horse in the race, but only the weight was the issue, so no, it was a good effort.
Mate, he's off to the BCD sprint. He's only a 3-year-old, so you have no weight. What do you reckon? Do you reckon you can get that low?
I don't know. We'll just see how we're going. But I reckon he's probably better sort of sticking to the 1,400 metres. I think he's just a real short, sharp sprinter. So, no, he'll be a good chance in that.
He really closed it off strongly with a big weight as well. A very, very impressive performance. A bit like Levante, I was wondering if he was going to get there, but that big motor kicked into gear when he got into the straight, and he came home very impressively for a first up run as well.
Oh, tremendous. Look, he was found out at a mile. I think that's fair to say, and he'll find his niche as a pure sprinter 1,400 metre horse, and I think he's going to be a very, very good one. Look, the key to this race was the speed, and I'll talk about it more in comparison to the Concorde when we get to that. But Babylon Berlin absolutely flew along in front, and has actually battled on well for third. I don't know where that horse goes next. I was looking at the calendar. There isn't much for a sprinting 3-year-old filly through the remainder of the season.
She was fresh too, so you'd think she would have a good bit of improvement in her as well, actually.
Well, it was a mighty run by her, given the speed that she went in front. Really good effort. And there were some other good runs in the race. So Gorgeous, who usually leads, got checked and actually did okay. Coming from back in the field against its pattern, Naja was a total forgive. But Need I Say More was kind of a class above. To sit 3 wide with that big weight and do that was really outstanding. And as I say, relative to the Concorde, which we'll come to, they ran through the first half of the race about 5 or 6 lengths faster than the Concorde. So being out 3 wide with that, he was entitled to weaken, Need I Say More, especially with the weight, especially being fresh up. Yeah, he's a Group 1 winner in waiting, I really think so.
Yeah, he is. We can have a look at that BCD market actually, because it is shaping up to be one of the races of the autumn or summer. Avantage Levante, Need I Say More, now we just heard going there as well. And even a horse like Call Sign Mav, I haven't even considered, who of course was successful over the 1,400 metres down at Hawke's Bay at the start of the season.
Well, that's one of the races of the season, isn't it? If they all get there, and we hope they will, there's no reason to think they won't, then that is a tremendous race. Need I Say More at 18s is potentially a little bit over the odds there. As I say, Levante makes herself a little bit vulnerable because of her racing pattern. if he can slow them up in front, need I say more, he'll be very, very hard to catch at weight for age.
He will, and we've seen him at Te Rapa when he gets onto the rail and he just gets away from them, very much in the style of Extravagant when we saw him there winning that race back in the spring. Let's move you along to the Concorde. Entrevier was successful in this one. She pinned the ears back and she established herself as a star on the rise.
Just a canter, she's all mine. Gino Severini, homeward bound, 3:50 to go. And it's Rockin' Affair about to be claimed now by Entrevier. Coming after them, pretty to see, wider out. Just a canter's warming up and through the centre also now next. Home behind these is Rockin' Affair. It's Entrevier, leads a length and a half. Just a canter and pretty to see, can't get it. Entrevier goes on to carry on her winning way. Entrevier beat Just a canter, third over was pretty to see. Then came Rockin' Affair, flashing at them late festivity, then further back.
Every task they put in front of Entrevier, she just keeps stepping it up, and this race loomed in exactly the same fashion as we saw earlier on in January. She just pins the ears back. She wants to be there. She found such a good kick, and she's just rising through the grades. Onwards and upwards. I spoke to Jamie. She's going to go to the King's Plate on the 6th of March at Ellerslie, and that they like to space out her runs, he said, so just giving her a little bit of time to recover and then onwards to there.
Yeah, I think that'll be a very strong form race. And Entrevier, again, I hate to bang the drum too much, but the section was so interesting because they went slowly for this grade of horse through the first 600 metres. The back runners had no chance, and Entrevier has actually run home 600ths of a second slower than Levante over the last 600, which is very surprising for a horse on the speed like that. So that's another thing you could say about this, is if Levante had been in this race, I think she probably doesn't win because they just wouldn't have gone fast enough up front, and it might have been the railway all over again. Just a canter has run the race of his life to run second. That was tremendous. But as I say, there are good runs just all over the place. If we show the replay again, the other Te Ako horse, another inexperienced mare called Festivity, who's a little bit of her own worst enemy at times. She's an absolute black booker in that, if we can see it again. And also Princess Rihanna in the yellow colours of the O'Sullivan stable was tremendous as well. They've both run amazing sectionals. Look at the Te Ako horse, the Tangerine, buried in the middle there, and look to her left or our right as we look at the 2 horse, Gino Severini. He never got a go. But Festivity, I just like the way she got through the line that last 20 or 30 metres or so. I think she should have run at least second in that race. And she's just another in the list of the Te Ako stable. I think she's clearly a Group winner in waiting, and maybe even a Group 1 winner if she can find the right race and get away from some of her stable mates. Even she's all mine wide out on the track was a pretty good run too. So that's a strong form race, and any horse that was back in the field and made any ground, you can back with confidence next up.
Yep, love it. Got them all written down in the black book. That Scout of the Concorde, of course. Let's get you on to the Karaka Cup, and it was the old boy back on top, Tiptronic back into form.
On the rocks and in the twinkling, now about to come out after it. Wider out then we've got Sir Nate and Mano down the outside. And behind these Daytona Red, Tiptronic giving a great side at the 200. Put 3 lengths on them. From in a twinkling, Scaglione, Sir Nate, wider out and Mano. It's Tiptronic with 150 to go. Sir Nate's 3 lengths away within a twinkling. Shut the gate. He's back in winning form, Tiptronic. Tiptronic too good, led all the way. Second in a twinkling, third Sir Nate, fourth photos. Mano and Daytona Red. Then came
Well, Rogan, the biggest win of your short training career on racing's biggest night must feel pretty darn good.
Definitely. It's a great relief as well to get a big win and get the little monkey off your back, as to say. But no, it was awesome, and it's great that Tiptronic was the one because he's one of Richie's favourites. So, no, it's good stuff.
Big advantage when you can take 2 kilos off but not lose anything in the horsemanship skills with Billy Pinn in the saddle.
Definitely. You know, he's great value for his kilo claim, and he's very good value from a horse that can run on speed.
You were a man who was skilled enough and lucky enough to be here a few times in decent races, free rolling in front and getting your biggest wins. You must have been impressed by what you saw tonight. Did it make you want to get back out there, Rogie? Did you think to yourself, gee, I could still do that?
Nah, I've gone on from there. I'd rather leave that to the other people. But yeah, no, it was great to see him ease the speed a little bit around the turn and give the horse a good rest at times. And it was actually quite pleasing to see that he didn't hand up the lead when those other horses came around. And when I saw him start coming underneath him and travelling at the 600 with the kick and that I've seen the horse give, yeah, I was pretty happy.
Off to defend the Herbie Dyke?
Yes, that's correct. That'll be, yeah. He's won a grand last time, so hopefully he can improve still, and we'll be all amongst it in a couple of weeks.
Well, Graham Richardson correctly pointed out that he seems to grow a leg after Christmas. He eats his Christmas dinner and he just improves on an upward trajectory from there. And this is a pretty good indication that he's got that right again, because that was a really good run. And I know the instructions were to go forward and lead. Murumupin took that very seriously, and Tiptronic did stick on really gamely and really well.
He got attacked hard mid-race, didn't he? But he wasn't giving the lead away, and it was the right thing to do. Quite obviously. Again, I think we say, like we did with the Karaka 3-year-old race, class prevailed here. This is a handicap race, of course, and the two most heavily weighted horses have run 1-2. They are the class horses of the field, and you couldn't say too much for those in behind. Amano was okay, Dance Card likewise, but they were entitled to run on at least as well as they did, given the big pull in the weights. He'll be cherry ripe on Herbie Dyke Day. The problem won't be the track, the distance, his well-being, anything. The problem might be Melody Bell, because she's just better.
Yeah.
But
he'll give you a good run for your money. He's honest and he'll be there. Yep.
He will, and he's probably at $16. Because of the presence of Melody Bell, I couldn't back him with confidence. But look, Brando's not going to be there, is he?
No.
Aegon, very unlikely to be there. So you can cross out a few from the market above him. And honestly, I don't see very much between Tiptronic and Rock on Wood. They've met a few times and there's not much between them. So $5.50 for Rock on Wood and Tiptronic at 16 doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Even though I say, if you wanted to bet Tiptronic, I think because of Melody Bell, you'd have to do it top 3 rather than one out like that, because that looks, assuming she gets well through the Thorndon and gets there, that's pretty much a cakewalk for her, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't want to say it, but from what she did in the spring, that's sort of how it appears that she is just far too superior for some of the gallopers here in New Zealand. Just thought we'd have a little look at the Auckland Cup market as well, just from the perspective of some of those runners going forward. In a Twinkling is in that Auckland Cup market, 31s to 14s. Platinum Invader is coming to 8s off the back of his good recent form.
Yes, and he's a deserving favourite, Platinum Invader, but it's a very hard market to line up at this stage, and I probably want another week or two of seeing how things develop. Sound was just flying in the spring, and if Sound brings the Melbourne spring form to Auckland, then probably starts favourite, I think.
Yeah, and also Star Czar's one for me. I know Baker Forsman team are very good with stayers, and I think he's been crying out for that longer distance, so hopefully we get to see him line up as well. He's a really nice stayer. Let's move you along to what comes next, and we leave Auckland having reviewed all of the races from Karaka Million Night, and we get you to Gore for the Gore Guineas, where Show 'em How It's Done was successful in a very impressive win.
The gift has pounced on them quickly up the centre of the track. Loomed up, took over from Chiquito. Show 'em how it's done, getting home really well on the inside. The gift, Show 'em how it's done, wants to run off the track, grab the lead. The gift goes again. I think Show 'em how it's done. Show 'em how it's done, and a head-bobbing finish with the gift, and there's little between them. Then we had a line-up for third as well.
Well, did exactly that. Showed him exactly how it's done, and you could almost say it was green up the straight. It was running around all over the place, not quite concentrating on the job in hand, and despite that, was still able to cling on for the win. If it had run straight, it had probably won by a reasonable margin.
Yeah, I think so, although the gift was finishing on well at the line as well. That was one of those situations where under the old rules of relegation, Show 'em how it's done could easily have been put out, but not nowadays, and rightly so in that case in particular, because I think we can say the best horse won. I really like the gift. Very consistent, tough horse, bred to stay. It's a half to Super Hoof, who stays, as we know, and is in the Oaks market as well at around, I think, $21 or $26 for the gift. That's, I think, a reasonable bet, actually, but a lot of that depends on Amaralina, because, as I said earlier, if she goes to the Oaks, I think her class will get her across the line, even though she's not a 1.5 mile horse. But The Gift, if you like backing the Southerners, and they can win the Oaks, they've done it plenty of times before, she's a reasonable kind of bet.
Yeah, she certainly looks that way. Well, we're going to get you to a break here on Wayne, and on the back of that, we jump straight into the sales coverage. We'd have 2 very strong days already.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
You're back with us on Weigh-In, and as promised, we get straight into our sales coverage. Michael Guerin was out on the ground at the Karaka Sales Pavilion, and he had all the latest info from the first 2 days.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Big hi to you and to Luke and everybody watching at home on Weigh-In. It's getting to the end of day 2 here at Karaka 2021. Been a really good sale. Interesting time, obviously, with all the challenges. No Australians or our friends from overseas on the grounds. Been a lot of activity online. On day 1, about 40% of the horses who went under the hammer had bids online. But we have noticed, of course, the Australians and particularly the Asian buyers not being here. Day 1 saw a real spike, a really big moment for the boss here at New Zealand Bloodstock, Sir Peter Vella, selling the sales topper, which is still the sales topper at the end of day 2, a beautiful Zoo Star filly. She went for $800,000. We'll talk shortly to the man who purchased her. Strong sale for the horses by the goods commercial stallions. Some of the Australian stallions have sold well. The Savabills have sold well. A lot of action on the Tavistocks. A lot of people keen to buy the Tavistocks. After day 1, we were averaging about $130,000. For the horses people have wanted today, there's been good action in that sort of $100,000 to sort of $220,000, $240,000 market. There's been a few more passings, and that means the rate's gone down, or the average has gone down to about $125,000. But overnight, with business done overnight online and a few more deals done after horses have been passed, we're getting to a clearance rate of 79%. So that's pretty darn good considering the circumstances. The vibe of the market after a $450,000 lot today, she was a Savabill filly. I think it's realism. People were here, and 6 months ago they thought this could have been really bad. There was talk about moving the sale to April. People have been realistic about it. Vendors are saying to me, hey, we've sold 19 out of 20. We're happy. We realise it's a tough year. There's not too many people moping around, even those who haven't made what they wanted for the horses. Some of them are saying, hey, we're happy to stick around here. We know there's a Ready to Run coming up in November. It was strong last November. We know we can go again and maybe sell these horses another way. So a realistic sale. I think a lot of people relieved it hasn't been really tough to sell good horses. And one man who's been doing his bit is well known to the Weigh-In viewers, David Ellis, as we get to a close, or getting close enough to a close on day 2. Pal, I'll call you Pal. 23 horses so far going to Team Tangerine, and I'm picking you're not finished yet.
Yeah, well, I've been saying for quite some time now, Mick, that the quality at the sale is very high. We made that call about 8 weeks ago when we started looking at the yearlings, and we wanted to come and buy these horses for Jamie Richards to train. And I was showing a few of them to Opie Bosson this morning when he came out, and he's just so charged that he'll be able to ride these horses in the next 12 months. So it's a real team effort, and we're just delighted that these horses, they've already started to leave for Tiak, our stud, and we'll start breaking them in a month's time, and yeah, it's a really exciting time for us.
You bought the sales topper, who's a filly. She's by Zoo Star from your good friend Sir Peter Vella. John Magnier coming into the ownership. That must be even special for you. You deal with lots of people, but he's the top of the tree, and he's saying, hey, I want to be involved in New Zealand.
Yes, he wanted to support the New Zealand industry and Tiak, our racing, and he's probably the most successful breeder in the world, and I guess he's won 9 or 10 English derbies. He's just an absolute legend, and to have a horse that he's involved in the stable is a real privilege.
You also bought the second top lot yesterday for $625,000, a written tycoon, and looked a runner.
Yep, he's been very popular, and these shares in these horses are selling really quickly, and he'll be in the Karaka Million, we hope, as part of the Tangerine Army next year.
Also buying for all price ranges. I see you picked up a Star Witness for $60,000. So is that an attempt to find horses that different types of people can get involved with depending on their budgets?
Yeah, well, I thought that particular yearling would have made 150, and we were just amazed to only pay that for her. And there's horses at all levels of prices for people that want to be involved. If you've got $5,000 or $10,000 and you want to have some fun in your life, it's not too late.
What's your honest opinion been on the sales? Take your Karaka hat off as a man who buys horses for a job and goes to lots of sales and reads everything there is to read. How has, after 2 days, the sale gone?
It's been an enormous sale. If we can get all the breeders in New Zealand to bring their horses back to Karaka, we can really turn this into something special in years to come. The fact that the clearance rate is nearly 80% today, it's remarkable for a pandemic and the times that we're in. And, you know, I really take my hat off to New Zealand Bloodstock. They've really put on a great week of sales, and we're very lucky to have this company in New Zealand.
I've got to ask you this, even if it does hurt. Did you get beaten on any horses? Have you gone after one and missed out?
Yeah, I've been beaten on a couple of horses, and one was knocked down to Niako stud, and it sounded like Tiakau stud, and somebody rang 30 seconds afterwards and said they'd take the whole horse, so I should have kept bidding.
Mate, congratulations on what happened obviously at Ellerslie on Saturday night. We reviewed that on the show. Well done on buying so many, and look, I know there'll be shares available, and if people want to get involved, Karaka will find them something to get involved in.
That's for certain, Mick.
It's David Ellis. He's been very busy. 23 horses already purchased as we get to the close of day 2. Emily, as you heard, Niako were the leading buyers today. Another one from Pencaro, this a Savabeel horse who sold for $450,000, probably likely to be the top lot. Heading into tomorrow, a lot of confidence here. Still some people who've missed out, and they're feeling they need to buy a horse. Online buying has been really good. Gay Waterhouse has been involved. It's been some cool parties going on around Australia. Look out for the Almanzors to be strong again. Almanzor has a beautiful horse going through one of the last lots tomorrow for Hallmark. I think it might be one of the better ones going through the sale. That's it from Karaka for 2021. Thanks for taking care of things in there, guys. I know you've got plenty more to say. So far, though, I think lots that our industry, after 2 days, can be very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. A big thank you to Michael and David for taking time out of their busy day at the sales to bring us the latest of that coverage coming in from Karaka, and things sounding relatively positive coming out of the sales ring. Let's get you to another break, and on the back of that, more information from Sales Week at Karaka.
Today's weigh-in is brought to you by our stable of sponsors.
All of the vendors out at Karaka working pretty hard this week, getting their lots through the ring and sold. We thought we'd take a look at day 1 and day 2 averages as we work through some of the numbers. We've got an average of 126,404. Now that's across day 1 and day 2, so just be aware of that. And you've also got that clearance rate at 79%, and your top lot on day 1, Azusa filly, who made $800,000. Good to hear that Coolball's involved with her. And then today, right at the end of the day, Tavistock Eshizo, beautifully bred, $520,000. Both of those going to Tiakau Racing. A couple of really cool things across the 2 days. Pencaro having the top lot on both days. Not only that, but Dave O'Sullivan, his 60th consecutive sale. So well done to him. That is quite an achievement. And I thought as well, great to see some of those international buyers there too. Gay Waterhouse, Kieran Marr, Chris Waller, Danny O'Brien, Richard Jolly, Paul Moroney, Michael Hitmott. The list could go on and on. I've got about another 10 listed down there, but really good to see these people getting involved in our sale week and making it a priority to have spent the time to research these horses and then make the commitment.
Absolutely. Look, the numbers, as we were probably expecting, are a bit down, but I kind of thought, looking at that average and the clearance rate, which at 79% is not bad actually. It's exactly the same as last year so far. If you look at where we were sort of 6 or 7 months ago, where things seemed, you know, on the brink of a precipice. And then knowing that there wouldn't be the international buyers here in person this year, I'd say you'd take that. I'd say you'd take those numbers. So that's a pretty good result all around, I would say. And
I think it's realistic, isn't it? It's worse than last year. That's to be expected, but it's not the bloodbath perhaps that we feared may occur.
No, there are going to be some tough times on the later days, sale days this week. That's for sure. I didn't quite understand the numbers there. 266 sold out of 390 catalogued. I'm sure I must include withdrawals as well, because otherwise that clearance rate would be about 68%. So maybe that includes withdrawals as well there. But look, a good sale, and I know we don't want to get into too much for Te Akau, or in this case NZB Lovefest here, but you have to say the NZB presentation and production and preparation for this is not just world class, but better than world class. When you compare their website and all the user-friendly functionality and stuff that they have on their website, it's at least as good, if not better, than the major comparisons in Australia. So another I think, pretty good sale with the, we don't have $1 million lot this year. There was sort of, unless there's going to be one tomorrow, but...
still hope, hold out hope.
Still hope, still hope. Emily, it did get me thinking, is you look at those big prices and, $800,000 seems like a lot of money, and it is, but it did get me thinking, gosh, when I was first getting interested in racing back in the early 80s, and there was a yearling go through the sales by Sir Tristram out of Taiona, probably in, I think, in about 82 or 83, sold for $700,000. And that is now almost 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It makes you realise how sort of mind-blowing that sort of number was, when you think, back in those days, $700,000 would buy you 12 or more median houses in New Zealand.
I wish that was the case now.
Now it'll get you one median house in New Zealand and a little bit left over, which is probably more of a reflection on the housing market than the horse market. But at least there's some depth here this time. The averages held up, I think, about as well as we could expect.
Yeah, we've still got a few exciting things to come from Karaka. Here's a little rundown of what you can expect. Book 1 does continue tomorrow, so very high quality into day 3 of Book 1. Book 2 starts on January the 27th to the 28th. And then, of course, new this year is that national online yearling sale, February the 3rd on Gavel House Plus. Coverage available and on Freeview. And also for more information, visit nzb.co.nz as we highlighted. A very easy website to use. Luke, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you with me this evening.
Oh, we're done already?
We are. We're done already, just about.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. No, it was great. Amazing
You,
information. Yeah, and it was wonderful races to review as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week. Group 1 racing again, this time from Trentham, Monday, 8 p.m, same time. See you then.